Welcome to Building Brilliance Book Club. I'm your host, Brian Wilson.
I'm Javada Hill.
And we are here on another episode of Building Brilliance. And we've jumped into this conversation because Javada and I just do this.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, Walter Isaacson's book on Steve Jobs. We're in, you did chapter 10 to 20, you got that far?
I got to 15.
Okay. I did 10 to 20 and then I went back and tried to do 10 again.
Okay.
Because I got over, all my issues with privilege.
Say more.
Okay. I had a gaggle on, I was supposed to have a gaggle on me by 19. There's certain things you can't say, certain things you can't do. You had to prep yourself for the work world. So I had to tame the radical Brian. I was fight the power, black and green medallions, you know what I mean? But if I wanted a job, I couldn't go in there like that. So I had to train work B to be a worker bee. At 19, he didn't have those restraints at all in any way, shape, or form. He could do and be whatever he wanted to do and whatever he could think of. He could just be it. There was no limitations. His quest to change the world was magnanimous. I mean, look at what we hold in our hands as a result and what we're able to do with it. Like, we're able to move at the speed of light. We're able to communicate with people from another country in seconds, see them, almost be in the same room with them. We can know anything. And I mean, think about the generation that grew up after him. Like the kids that were born in the 80s and the 90s, when they came into the world, the technology was already there. So we started here like, nah, that shit ain't gonna fly. To, oh my God, this shit works. They came into it like, oh, you guys already got this. Cool. Yeah. Watch what we do with it.
Right.
My generation is still standing around in like awe a little bit. But they took everything that his wildly childlike creative mind could come up with and recreated it through art and technology. Like, it was a real fusion of art and technology. You didn't get the art piece?
No, he's definitely an artist.
I think. So wait, is he more of an artist or?
Go ahead. What you gonna say?
No, let me hear what you was gonna say.
A curator, somebody that brings artists together, because he knew
he did that more than anything.
He was more like, he went to wherever, Germany, and I'll give you $1 million, sign on. And then
come on over here and work for me.
And come over and then have it say made in California or whatever, designed by Apple in California. Like, he understood the design and then paid people under him. Just like team leaders, like at a certain point, the people under you is doing all the stuff. Like,
right.
Not him, specifically. He's not sitting at the table. He
can't do any of this stuff.
Right, he's out there sourcing the people and just showing up to meetings and stuff. So I just think that he was like, not a sorcerer. I can't say that. That's like a cultist, like a sorcerer.
There was there was some sorcery in there.
Yeah, like not.
I can see that.
But I think also like his blood, the blood of his biological parents, it wasn't Steve that was privileged or entitled, it was his smart parents that was like, whatever I say is going to go, because they were smart people.
Wait, you talking about his biological mother and father?
Yeah, because Steve is we thought of the word privilege. He just got placed there in California. I think he got his cojones from his biological parents because their like genius and their DNA combined made him. And then thankfully he got his docile, like adopted parents that were just like moderate, simple, dimple people, but they weren't brilliant.
True.
And once he found out that he was like, oh, I'm smarter than my dad, he was like, oh, I'm taking off. But he was already smarter than his dad before he even knew. When he came out the womb, he was already smarter than his adopted people. He not really doing no work. He just sourcing individuals and putting them on.
And just pulling them together. And I mean, this is...
by his vision.
Yes. Because he didn't have any college education.
Right.
He was only there for like a week. If that.
A year.
A year?
Right, yeah.
Well, I mean, a week in
right.
a year is in college. It's only...
But I liked, it was like an example. I forget the guy's name, but he knew that Steve liked people like father figures, and Steve plays on to like, oh, you could be my father figure. He took the man from Coca-Cola and was like, oh, you want to do whatever, and they gave him a $1 million sign-on bonus and a $1 million salary. But he knew that you could pull their plugs by being like, oh, what's missing for you? A father figure? Let me be that. But he knew it already.
Yeah.
Like, and people on his inside knew Steve was like, oh, he's manipulating you because that's the way in.
That's the way in.
That is Robert Moses. That is 48 Laws of Power. And he gave like a premonition, like he said he has to go hard. He has to do all this stuff because he felt like he wasn't going to live for long. And he died at 56, which is young, pancreatic cancer, which is 56 is young. But he knew it. It's written. Walter wrote it out. And then, sometimes people do live in a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes. So, did he self-prophesize his own death?
A little bit, like the health, like not eating and not washing.
Yeah, because I was saying, if all of that, man, you could have had a steak.
Yeah, he wouldn't have done.
Right, but I mean, you were doing all this be healthy to get cancer anyway. I was like, that's kind of...
But I think the cancer came from his negative energy. I think that's what it came from. Not I feel like the eating, of course, the eating helps, but the way that he treats people and stuff throws them off.
Really,
I think that's what brought on the internal demise. Because anytime you'll bring him into a room, he'll cry.
I'm like, dude, really? That's the first thing you do?
He could though. I wondered what type of crying was it? Was it real streams, or just was it eye watering? Is something in him giving him?
I think it was a full all out on the floor, thumb in your mouth, crying, sniveling. I really think he was a child. I really think he was still in the id portion of being a child, which is why it was so easy for him to come up with this concept of creating something for the world, because that's how kids think. I want to do something huge, magnanimous. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a fireman. Okay, as a kid, a fireman seems like looking at this building and being, I am going to be that one day. And then you realize that was simple to manifest the imagery of a fireman. So now, what can I manifest in my childlike mind that I don't have the same hindrances and constraints as a working adult has?
That's good.
A working adult has responsibilities, so constraints come into play. Budgeting comes into play. Considerations come into play. Other people come into play. Working in a team setting and an environment come into play at some point. Even as a kid, playing together you learn that early. You know what I mean? And how to bring people to your sandbox with you versus repelling people out of your sandbox by temper tantrums and, you know, vicious verbal attacks. Like, he seems like the type of person that would have thrown his truck at you as a kid. You know? If he didn't like what you were doing, or if you doing something that he didn't appreciate, he probably would have been one of them kids that reached up and slapped you.
I was thinking, did he have a brother and sister?
He had a sister.
Did they adopt
But
it too?
I think they adopted her. I think
Yeah.
she came like a little later.
Right.
So I don't think that I think he was an only child
Right.
by himself.
Mm-hmm.
So they just kind of, the adoptive parents just kind of like pushed back and said, do whatever the hell you want to do. Just don't burn the house down. I don't even know if they said that to him.
Right.
I think they just let him go.
Which is nice, which
Like-
is okay. It's a style of parenting. It's not right or wrong. It's just a style.
Oh yeah, I don't know. You know, my mother had a whole different style of parenting, I guess. I don't know. I mean, you think about the things that you learn from your parents and how the things that you've learned from your parents you've indoctrinated into your personality, and now they're a part of you. Whether you liked it or not liked it or whatever the situation is, it is what it is. I don't think he had any parts of it, any parenting at all. This is just, but the loose reins just allowed him to think of unbelievable things, you know? Like, what could we think about? What could we create in our minds if we were void of constraint? Like, there's no constraint at all whatsoever.
You will be operating, I think, on a level of world like he was. He was meeting with Chinese diplomats and wasn't bowing down when he met them, and they were like tickled by his antics because he had a reputation, and they was like, oh, he is really like his reputation. But I think that you went back to childlike. You can't enter the kingdom unless you're a childlike. Come and like humble yourself and being like fun and free again. What could you create? You would be creating on a worldly level, like a mass marketing movement or something. #MeToo. Like that was a world level. That was a movement for
Okay.
Kane, but it's still like
Okay.
it rippled through everywhere. California, you can create something that can ripple through the world. Pinky and the Brain, we're gonna take over the world. They're always like, you're always taking over the world. You're not doing like just for Philadelphia.
So now I'm looking at Steve Jobs on the levels of Dr. Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa.
Nelson Mandela.
Yes, people that have made world changes. Made grandiose gestures to the world, left their mark on the world.
People are, using the platforms, using all of the platforms to get out, but sometimes, like, Martin didn't do that. They did kind of use the mass media. They used newspaper and radio.
They all did. Even Robert Moses was exceptional at wielding stories
Oh,
to
we
make
are
his
already.
bridges look, his parks and roadways, appease to the masses. That's how he was able to garner so much favor, because the people loved what he was doing without really seeing what he was doing in the background. Steve Jobs was right on stage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There was no hiding his hand. There was no Houdini. You saw his vividry, in live 3D. There was no sleight of hand.
He was super duper confident too. It was a deep knowing that whatever he was up to, he was going to accomplish. And he started off with 3 people and started to get angel investors. Sequoia, they started to get angel investors from 3 people. And then that one person was like, no, I ain't going to do this. But he had a deep...
That was the colonel, the guy from Texas.
Maybe, and he was living off of his Social Security, and they was like, did you regret it? And he said no. But I did get to the other person who didn't, Steve didn't put on, and the man was like following him around in the office, and Steve was like brushing him off, and he just didn't put him on. He did not give him stock in the business. And I love like how some people was just living off of their living off of their stock equity. I love that as a retirement plan. $1 million sign-on bonus.
Yes.
And $1 million a year, easy. And that's nothing.
At some point, it felt like millionaires working to maintain millionaire status. For a minute, it kind of just felt like they were working and fighting to maintain top dog status.
They did create a nice, luxurious product. I'm interested to get to the point where they talk about how did they differentiate themselves from IBM and to find their market. That's where I'm curious to see. Like I feel like I know like they targeted people. They target a certain demographic. Like that's why they needed a marketing person to figure out who was our client.
Right, because they didn't really know. They were just.
And I think once they figured out who their client was, that's when they took off, because they started to market to that person. Because at a certain point where I'm at, chapter 15, they still are behind IBM. They're still not number 1. Mm-hmm. They developed the Lisa that flopped, which is nice to see. Like, just in our industry, you put out products, you do, or put out products, people, or just houses. Sometimes they flop, sometimes they sell, sometimes they don't, and then you get your next one. And it's like, oh, this is the Mac. This is what's going to do it. Right. Stop working on that. That you're wasting your time. He unplugged
the man's computer.
Oh my God.
While he was in the middle of writing a program.
Right, and you really had to be empty and meaningless, because if I lost all my work and
that I had been working on for hours and hours and hours,
you would have had to really calm down.
This is where I'm surprised at. I'm surprised ain't nobody punched him in the mouth.
Right.
Like, nothing in his book I've heard thus far where anybody just walked up to Steve Jobs and punched him in the mouth. Because he was primed for it.
Yeah.
I mean, here, Philly, you can't act like that.
Yeah.
And expect people to still
mess with you.
Yes.
That's saying it kindly.
That's saying it real kindly. Right. That's saying it real kindly staying. Because people around here wouldn't be effing with you. But, and then so we just came out of reading Good to Great.
He was already at great. Just kidding. He had to go from good to great, but he was already at great.
I can't argue with you there.
Yeah.
His mindset was already at great. He was just trying to get the right people on the bus.
That's good.
He really was.
He
trying to get the right people on the bus. And it's a shame that they had to fire him to let him know he wasn't the right person on the bus, but they still needed him. They needed his creative mind.
And his drive.
They just didn't need him to be in charge of it. They needed to like they should have put him in a bubble in a mountain somewhere, and they could only just communicate with him through computer. Because I think more stuff would have gotten done.
Yeah, and
without all the emotions.
I like that we can see life is just not like a series of successes. And he was very vulnerable in his success, or quote unquote success and failure.
Yeah.
When he left, he made Nexus. He made
Pixar.
He still went off. You know, like he's
Of
still.
course. As he.
You're not gonna. I don't care if you fire me. I'm still gonna go off. I'm gonna pop off.
Right.
Because that's what I'm gonna do. I'm not just gonna sit here. I'm gonna create. I'm here to create something, and I'm gonna create something magnanimous.
So he was like, Steve Jobs was like Tupac. All right, that was a good analogy, right? I mean, think about Tupac when he came out of jail.
Mm-hmm. They
Just
always
went
go
to the
on.
studio and just grinded.
Little Wayne, he said, or somebody, he was like, once they release me November, like, it's on and pop. And I like that, because I really like that. Sometimes you need to, like, not fail, because it's a perception, it's your perception that you failed. It's supposed to be like a lesson or something.
Right.
But yeah, like, once you go down and then you come back up, like, you roaring like a
laser
lion.
focus, roaring, I'm ready,
Right,
you know?
right.
He railed and lashed out at everybody, but I think he was also tortured. Because where did he find peace?
That's why I think that it showed up in his body. Because he didn't have, because anytime something happens and we having a conversation, and I get it, like, you know, it's okay to cry, whatever gender, but I just feel like that was each time.
Every time.
You know, and I feel like that is a
Kleenex in business.
Is an example of how much that he's holding back emotionally.
I really think he was deeply affected by being adopted.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder what he would have been like had he gotten that genuine parental love in the beginnings. Like, from his mother, because she seemed genuinely nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't understand why they gave him up for adoption and then they went on and had more kids. That was confusing.
They were, I think, too young, and the dad didn't want them to be mixed. Something like that. Her dad didn't want her to marry the guy. And I think she was like 19. No, she was 23 because Steve had Lisa when he was 23 too.
Oh, yeah.
So I think they were young, and then the dad was mad. And then when the dad died, she was like, all right.
Now I can go find my kid now.
Now I can do
But
whatever.
she didn't find him. Steve found her.
Mm-hmm.
That's so crazy that he was at that restaurant and at this restaurant that he loved, and his dad owned the restaurant and they didn't even know.
Yeah, it's
get
like
to that part.
no, and I'm so excited because it's
sorry.
like, no, it's all right. It's string theory. Like, you're supposed to meet the people on your way passing. You're supposed to cross paths with certain people at certain times and stuff like that. Like, your whole life is already orchestrated. You don't know this, but the most powerful one knows, like, oh, this is going to happen. 23, these are this, if you make this decision. And then for that to happen at his father, it was already like serendipitous or something.
Yeah,
like
because it was really weird. I mean, you'll get there. I don't want to tell you. I don't want to tell you in advance because I was just like,
you
wow.
can share though.
Well, he was going to the restaurant. They said he was frequenting the restaurant with friends, and he really liked the restaurant, and he tipped the owner really well. Mm-hmm. But he didn't know that the owner was his dad, and his sister found out when he met his sister. She found the dad, and Steve was like, don't tell him who I am. So she went and met with her father, sat down and had a conversation with him. And the dad told the sister that Steve Jobs used to come into the restaurant and eat. He really enjoyed the food and he tipped really well. Now the dad is telling his daughter this, and he don't know Steve Jobs is his son, but the daughter does. So she went back and told Steve, and that's how he put the two together of who his dad was.
So cool.
That's crazy. I don't know. I had to go find mine. I had to go track mine down because I was like, this crazy. I gotta know.
Right.
And that's funny because you're right. The strings are interesting because for me, I was watching a movie on HBO about this girl who was trying to find her dad. And she looked in the white pages, and found his name in a white page. Oh, that's a great idea. So I went to the library. 'Cause I used to live in the library on 19th Street. I went to the library and I pulled up all the white pages from the 60s and the 70s and found every Curtis Webb, wrote the numbers down, came home and I called them all. They all called me back. The last one was my dad.
Nice.
I was like, what's up? How you doing? But we had a relationship for like 10 years after that until he passed. I was with him when he passed. So I said I had to get that out, man. You know, I had to get that out of my system. I had to get past that hurdle.
Nice.
So let's talk about his leadership style. Shall we?
Yeah. Was there one? It was like an degrading encouragement.
Degrading encouragement.
He was like, this is
a
crap.
degrading encouragement. I'm gonna put you down just to build you back up again.
Right. What an oxymoron. I don't know if it worked. He was like, this is crap, and the man was like, you didn't even look at it. He said, because I know he could do better. You know, like sometimes you want to like prove people wrong, like you want to like make them proud of you. So if they was idolizing him, they would have like accepted it, but then wanted to still like, oh, one day he's gonna be like, yeah, this is great, and then like some of their software engineers, they started to understand his like coding and like something. He was like, you know, this is crap. But then what they heard was Steve doesn't understand how this is better. So then they started shifting how they spoke to him and started speaking to his listening. They started speaking to what he was listening for. It was like, how can this optimize the system compared to like he doesn't understand what's going on here. So that's why he's saying it's crap. So his leadership, I feel like he like cut you down, which is like humbling to encourage you to produce something stronger.
Yeah, I think he was really worked to tear people down in order to build them back up. I think he enjoyed pushing buttons to challenge you.
And I think sometimes that looks like life, like this is adoption month, which is so like we be on point sometimes.
Do it be hitting them? we hit them right on point for some reason.
And adoption means to choose. To root is to choose. And it's nice to be like, because people, they look for their parents. They want to know who my father is and stuff. And it's nice that he met his father first, then his mother. I don't know yet.
No, he met his mother first.
Okay.
He actually, let's reverse that. He actually did meet his dad first. He just did not know it was his dad.
Okay.
So then we'll find that out after he meets his mother. His mother introduces him to his sister. Him and his sister really hit it off, and then that's when the dad.
And it's the question was his leadership style. So I'm on the money when I say degrading. But then it's like sometimes that is life. Like, you know, you be getting hit left and right. You know, but it's only going to make you stronger. I hate that, you know, because at a certain point it's just like, oh my goodness, like I'm tired of getting hit. And
do you ever think he read a book?
Yeah, maybe. Because I think that he read whatever he was interested in that moment.
At the moment, okay.
And it was like, it could have been like Zen books and stuff like that, where whatever he was interested in that moment. It could have been like a computer book. I think so. He could have at least skimmed it.
I know he read the stuff when he took his Hajj to India.
Yeah.
I know that was a big.
And what if that is a little bit of a privilege?
Yeah.
You know, because Lisa did that too.
Yeah.
He got that DNA test, and he said 94% of the people could have been or something like that. Oh my God, that man. My favorite. He said, sign these pieces of paper before I go public. Strategic. Sign these pieces of paper before.
Is that knowing? Is that ego? Is that... What is that? Bullying? That's an ego bully move. He was doing that same thing Robert Moses was doing too. You know, if you don't hire me, I'm gonna quit.
Yeah.
He was using that tactic.
And they fired him too.
Of course. That shit don't work. I'm gonna be like, hey, bye. Sorry to see you go.
They fired Steve. Like, who are you, Robert? Like, we don't let you go.
Bye.
And then when they get let go, they get stronger.
They come back like, yo.
What's like
Toy Story. I love Toy Story.
Okay.
You didn't like Toy Story?
It's not one of my favorites.
The whole.
I like it. I wouldn't watch it over and over and over again.
I didn't get that far, but you know, I just liked the whole story of the toys. I was a toy kid.
Yeah.
Before my brother came along, it was just me and my mother. So all I had all these stuffed animals. So I used to play camp with the stuffed animals. You know, a stuffed bear, a stuffed elephant, you know, a stuffed pig. You know, I had all these stuffed animals. So I was the camp counselor. You know, and I tell all the animals what they were supposed to do, where they were supposed to go, when it was coming time to go to bed. I put all the animals to bed. That was my, you know, my thing. So now when Toy Story came out, it immediately brought me back to all my toys. Like, oh shit, I felt like I left them, you know? And I was going, oh damn, what happened to the pig and the bear? Like my mother still had the bear. Of all the toys, she still had the bear. And for a while, she had the pig. You know, when I think about that, when I was watching that movie, I was touched by the whole concept about the toys and then leaving the toys behind and the separation. Like when I turned away from childish things, you know, and then started to kind of like grow up, you know. Then the toys became personal interactions, you know, with not inanimate objects, you know, where you just get like friends and people and then having them manage friend relationships. It's funny when you were a kid, you friendly with everybody. And then as you get into teens, then you start to notice a difference between boys and girls. And then you start trying to pick your sides, I guess. I don't know.
No, Toy Story is good. It came out in 1995. Yada, yada. Man Who Belongs. I think that the root of it is so cool. It's not a spiritual book.
No.
Like Steve is not a spiritual book, but it is like nice. I'm in a world of adoption. Like, and then the word separation comes in Toy Story summary, it says belonging. Yeah. And that is his root. Like, I feel like all of that is our root. Like, you know, not like who do we belong to? Where's my father? Not just my earthly father, but my heavenly father and whatever, you know, you believe in and stuff like.
That's so crazy. My ex-wife and my current wife were both adopted. Mm-hmm. With two totally different experiences.
You love them adopted ones.
I don't know how.
You belong to me.
I was collecting.
Right.
I'm a collector. I'm telling you. I just collect.
Yeah. Adoptees.
People. Yes. Stray cats. I collect everything.
You want them to feel like they got a home?
Yes. It's part of my DNA. So, yeah, I get it. I don't know how I get it, but to some extent, I understand that. I don't know. This is interesting.
Yeah, I like it though. So no. Where are we going? Where are we going?
Perfectionism.
Yeah, I see it. I'm not a perfectionist. He said something like, I don't know what it was. It's just like, I'm not a perfectionist. And I appreciate people that are perfectionists. They say like, he didn't, in his house, all that money you got, you ain't got no furniture.
No furniture. You don't own sticks. You don't have a chair.
He sitting on the
floor.
floor.
You don't have nothing to sit on. And he walking around barefooted with no shoes on. You ain't
It
got
don't-
no shoes.
It don't matter. Like sometimes the money don't make a difference. They say you saw Michael Jackson's house. He was living in his house was old. He ain't had nothing in there.
Oh, really? He didn't have stuff either?
No, it was like Michael Jackson died whenever he died, but the house was still looking like the 1950s.
Oh, get
It
out
was
of here.
still like real old and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it was nice to see like people's interior environments, and he said I couldn't figure out what I wanted because I would have to put so much energy into like perfection of like the material and the design and the creation, but you still didn't pay anybody. But if he paid somebody, he would still have to like.
All he would have done was stood around and argue with them.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have been perfect, so he didn't take action on it. Perfectionism, it's essential inside of. I would say yes. You would need it here. You would need it. I love like the constant conversation of software reboot, hardware drive stuff, like because that's all we are on a molecular level is atom synapses, just
Bunch of zeros and ones.
just bunch of zeros and ones. We can finally see the code. I can see the.
Ooh.
Like, what? And then he consumed it, man.
Yeah, he really consumed. He was fanatical. Can I say that?
Yeah.
About perfectionism.
Yeah, I think it's essential. Like it's not perfect.
No, well, so here's where some lines got blurred for me. Because to be a perfectionist, you already have to envision what the end looks like. So you already have to know what the goal of perfection is. I don't ever think he knew what the goal of perfection was. I think it was an ever elusive thing for him that he spent time chasing. I don't ever think he could have effectively defined it, which is why it was always a quest for him.
Which is okay. 'Cause I don't think you have to find it. I think you can have an idea, but you have to strive for the vision.
But I think had he been able to define it, he would have found peace. And
I don't think finding it was a prerequisite because you could have. I don't think that it would have been like.
I think he would have at least been able to find some peace within himself. Like you said, the cancer may have been self-inflicted. What gives you peace at the end of the day?
I think is accepting what is and what isn't, forgiving what is and what isn't.
Can you imagine if you didn't have that?
Yeah, and it's daily, momentarily, because my peace can't be predicated on me on all the green lights. I'm making all the green lights once I'm driving down the street. It can't.
It can't. Your peace is going to come because your peace came because you summoned your peace.
Yeah.
I don't ever think he knew how to do that. I don't ever think he knew how to do that. That's why he was always just emotional and at all extremes of emotionalness.
Yeah, because I think there was a part of him was trapped inside, like the loving part or something I think was trapped. I liked how someone said that he wasn't so philanthropic too. Like somebody came and venture capitalism and like they was spending something, and I like how like when you get money, like different people start to come to you.
Oh yeah.
They start to like different.
Hey cuz,
right?
What's up, cuz? What you mean, cuz?
Yeah, they start to come and like this woman, whoever she was like a venture capitalist or something, and he was like he didn't care none of it about whatever there was, but
he was so self-enthralled.
Perfectionism.
He didn't know anything except what he wanted. I'm telling you, I keep going back to the same thing. He was just a tortured child, with no outlet, He could not even control himself. I mean, even to decorate your own house to say, okay, I made all this money, I made a product for the world, that's beautiful, that's my job. That's what I do as a 9 to 5. When I come home, I want to create peace for my family, for my wife and my kids. I want them to have things. I want them to enjoy the spoils of my hard work and effort. Let me give them a pool, and let me give my kids some jumping stuff, and let me give them a nice bed to lay on, and a nice kitchen to cook nice meals so we can do family stuff together. Where was all of that? Where was like any of that? He took them to trips. We saw that, and I got the book. I actually have the book. I just didn't bring it in because the shit fucking it's that big. But and they have pictures in it of him and his family on trips and vacations. They have him in a house, and then one of an apartment that he owned, which was like filled with stuff, cluttered with stuff all over the place. So I mean, I'm like, okay, you do have at least a place where you just keep shit, right? You're not walking around, carrying all your stuff around with you. I don't think he knew what completion was and what success was in the sense that it appeased him. I think he was always on a constant search for it. Like it was just out there and it wasn't in here. Like perfection is in here.
It reminds me of like, I'm saying it's not a spiritual book, but it like.
Doesn't it make you though think?
Yeah, like, because it makes me think like what the religions that he tapped into. Like he went over India, Zen Buddhism, he did that, but did you do any of the other religions? Like,
how about did you practice any of them?
Did you practice any? Because they all about peace.
They all about peace and love and calming your inner child and
being
getting through some.
Did
you do any of this?
Yeah, and then it reminds me of The Alchemist. Like Steve went all over. He went to India, stayed there for I don't know, like a year, and then came back looking like an Indian. And like his skin was all like, burnt a little bit, brown. And his mom was like,
"Who the hell are you?"
Steve? Hey, mom. Haircut, so it is kind of like to me like a spiritual bar, because he literally went all over the world to find peace, and it could have been right within him, but he still didn't unlock that. That part.
He didn't take the key and say, "Okay, let me do this."
He was still driven by ego, like totally driven by ego, using the dark powers to get stuff done. He wasn't loving to his coworkers and stuff,
or his or his daughter.
Yeah.
I felt bad for her.
Yeah, but it's still in his DNA.
I really felt bad for her because I said, and this was just me, I said, I'm not going to lose my child just because me and her mother are separated. She still has a father, and I'm still going to be present in her life. No matter what the bullshit I have to go through, I'm not going to let my daughter grow up like I grew up without a father around. That was how I thought. Steve thought the opposite. Well, I didn't have my father around, so why should she have hers?
We don't know if he said that.
Come on, that's how he acted. That's how he treated her.
Yeah.
He would go over to the house and see the mother and sit with the mother, and the kid be in the other room.
Because something was, I'm not justifying
it. You
it.
got millions. You know what you could have done for her? What you could have done for her life? What you could have just shared of yourself with her? And you chose to be quirky and awkward? That's what you learned?